In this video, you'll discover how we took an ordinary creator doing 10 to 20k per month with his low ticket community offer to generating over $100,000 per month by implementing a high ticket mentorship, going from hitting 20k months to hitting 21k a day and generating over $500,000 over the next few consecutive months. And this is just on one payment processor. Now, here's the catch. This creator doesn't actually have a massive personal brand like the personal brands you see on your Instagram or TikTok feed every single day. It's not someone who's flexing their lifestyle content on Instagram or on YouTube. In fact, it's a completely faceless offer with an anonymous creator. The audience of this creator has never saw his real identity, name, or face, and neither did I. All they ever saw was his Twitter brand. And so in the next 30 minutes, I will literally reveal how we built out the entire offer and how we built enough trust to collect up to $12,000 in pay-in-fulls from people joining this creator's program. And so if you have a personal brand, especially with your face on it, just copy the process that I'm handing to you on a platter today. And it's going to make it unreasonable for you not to generate multiple 5 or 6 figures with your personal brand while doing nothing besides posting content and fulfilling for the students in the program in 15 to 20 hours per week at most. Because that's literally all this creator we launched here had to do, generating around 600 to 650,000 across all payment processors, completely on autopilot with a 3-phase system that we built out. And in the first phase of this process, we built out his actual offer, the high ticket offer. With the second phase of the process, we built out the A to Z conversion process. So this would take someone from just landing on a piece of this creator's content and seeing his page to becoming a customer that he was onboarding. And in the launch process that I'm breaking down today, that A to Z conversion process was broken up into 2 parts, with the first part being converting all that creator's traffic from Twitter into his low ticket and high ticket offer, and the second part of it being ascending his current low ticket members that he was doing 15 to 20k per month with into the high ticket offer. And then the last phase of this entire process was building out the actual sales process of this offer. For obvious reasons, you probably don't want to be the one that's reaching out to all your leads and hopping on all the sales calls, and neither did this creator, which is why we created a high converting sales process to actually sell his mentorship for him completely on autopilot. And if you watch this entire video and go through all 3 phases of this launch process but feel like you don't have enough time or experience to actually replicate it in your own business, in that case, I do run a done for you team where we will come into your business and build this process out entirely from A to Z in order to launch and scale your offer in as little as 7 days, while you get to sit back and watch multiple 5 or 6 figures hit your bank account. With that being said, let's jump into phase 1 of this $500,000 launch, where I'll explain how we actually designed his mentorship offer to sell to his audience. Now, before we even get into the market research phase, there was one step that we had to do, and that was solving 2 problems this creator had at the moment. The first problem was his low ticket offer. Even though we did have 500 members in it, it was dying off, right? There was no new members coming in consistently month over month, and there was more people churning than there were people staying or coming in. And the second problem was the low ticket produced very good results, right? So with problem 1, the solution to this problem became rebranding the low ticket as a new product or as a revised, revamped low ticket. The reason we did this is because if we could get more people to start joining the low ticket again and just get more people in the low ticket, we would be able to ascend more people on the back end, right? So more people in the low ticket, more trust created with this anonymous creator, they would essentially get to trial the program, and then the more people we would be able to actually ascend on the back end, right? And we would also be able to increase retention with this revised low ticket, because his offer was dying because there was missing a few variables in the low ticket, and that's something we took on fixing. And the second thing is the low ticket did produce very good results where there wasn't really a gap being built for people to ascend. So this was a problem and a blessing at the same time. The problem was we needed to create a better gap, a reason for people to pay us an extra $7,500 to $12,000 and upsell to the high ticket. And the blessing was we had a lot of social proof from the low ticket itself that we could use to ascend people into the high ticket and actually build trust with this faceless creator. A few more things, right? To start, before we even, got into the first phase to do the market research, we researched the creator. So we had the creator fill out an onboarding form, because even though we didn't know his identity, and I still don't know his identity, we got his backstory, right? So that's something we could use. And then we created a checklist of everything that needed to be done for this launch to be successful, right? Launching this faceless offer. And then the solution to these 2 problems, right? Creating that gap and then getting more people into the low ticket became market research, which is the first phase that I'm about to get into here. And we looked into low ticket offers that were outperforming us in the market. We wanted to look at high ticket offers that were also doing well to see what they were doing well, especially high ticket offers that also had low tickets. We wanted to see their ascension process. And the main thing was speaking to the low ticket members that he had to see what gaps did the low ticket not fix, right? Because this gave us a way to create the high ticket offer. So after we pinpointed these two problems the creator currently had, and we created this checklist, we jumped into the first phase, which was market research. We looked at competitors, which is Team Bull Trading, very big competitor. Some of these competitors, the creator actually pointed us towards. There's trades with Sniper. This guy is faceless as well, right? So this was a very similar offer, and it was low ticket specific, and there was newer trades. And the other similarities with these offers, competitor offers that we looked at, was that they were also selling an older market, which is something we found out later. This was a huge benefit looking at these competitors, because through the market research, we found out that our market on average was 30, 40, up to 50 years old, right? We weren't selling trading courses to 18-year-olds trying to make their first dollar online. The next thing with analyzing competitors, we looked at their funnels, so their VSLs, right? We looked at what they were doing. There's this guy who's been running an offer for a long time, of course, TJR, Halbert, another trading coach that was doing 50K to 100K per month at the time. Not sure what he's doing now. We looked at their sales process, what they're doing, so we could emulate that. And then the other important thing with competitor research was looking at the reviews and threads that people were leaving about the product. And this one is critical because we were able to see with these competitors, right? We looked at each one of them, right? We looked at every competitor's WAP review section. We looked at Reddit threads, Quora threads that were being created about their product. And we were looking at the good reviews and the bad reviews, right? The good things people had to say and the bad things people had to say, because we would be able to double down on the good things that people loved. And we'd be able to include that as benefits to our low ticket and high ticket offer. And then with the bad, we were able to improve on it and then actually sell against it in the process. And there was a whole doc created with these reviews that we would later aggregate into GPT. And I'll show you how we did it. That just gave us more market knowledge. Now, the next step to the actual market research was doing the creator's audience research. And this came down to jumping on 7 total, at least in the first launch, 7 calls with people in the low ticket, his current customers. He had no high ticket customers, right? So just low ticket customers, as well as a few people in the free community that he just helped out for free. And on these calls, we asked him specific questions to find out more about them, right? Because these people made up his avatar. We wanted to extract their pain points, their desires, their objections and limiting beliefs that were keeping them stuck or keeping them from investing into a higher tier mentorship. And the big thing there was also finding out, the avatar. This is how we found out that most of the avatar was over 30, 35 years old, which also then led us to find out that this avatar was financially capable of investing not just 4K, right? Not just 7K, but up to 12K into a high ticket program. And here's an example of some of the questions we asked. What problems did they face trading before joining the low ticket community? What were some of their fears before joining the low ticket? Was there anything that almost made them not buy, right? Objections. And I'm not going to go through all of these questions here, but you can pause the video and see what we asked. And of course, an important aspect of this was recording these actual calls so that we can get the transcripts, which I'll show you what we did with those in a second here. Now, once we got the market and audience research and we took all those Reddit threads, the WAP reviews, the VSL transcripts, everything we had on the market, and then we also took the call transcripts, we were able to really dial in our messaging and perfect the offer and also set the right price points for the offer and not just guess. And here's what we actually did. We took GPT, we fed the call transcripts into it, we fed the Reddit threads, everything we had, right? The VSL transcripts from competitors. And here's a few questions that we asked. We psychoanalyzed the prospects based on the calls and based on the questions we asked them. We found out the objections, the desires they had, and we had GPT make what I like to call a creative brief. As you can see here, the creator was very happy with the creative brief because he didn't have this understanding of his own market before we created this document. In this document here, it went into our promise, it went into our desires, the problem list that the audience had, our unique selling points for the low ticket and the high ticket offer. It actually helped us create the offer based on the real desires and problems as well as objections that were keeping these people stuck. We even created an avatar that was named Mark, and we were able to essentially write everything we did. You want to write things to one person, right? When you're writing an email, when you're writing a VSL, you're not trying to write it and speak to everyone. You're trying to speak to one person who summarizes your ICP, who summarizes your audience. And that's exactly what the creative brief helped us do when we created this avatar by the name of Mark in the creative brief. And going through this process, we found out that the biggest pain point these people had was inconsistency, specifically inconsistent trading through different market conditions, because many of the people in his low ticket and his community, these were again older, more sophisticated people. A lot of them, a good portion of them, were actually profitable or extremely close to being profitable. And by profitable, I mean they would win 55% of their trades and lose 45% of them. They were barely profitable. And the reason they would lose is they would have these monthly streaks of wins, maybe weekly streaks, right? And then a news headline would come out, an election would happen, right? And their results would just go to shit. The main trigger for their failure and their inconsistency was changing market results. It was something every single person, nearly every single person on the market research calls, as well as from the competitor research in the reviews and all the threads, it was something every single person said. So that's why we called the unique product mechanism, the product itself, the adaptive trading approach. We didn't just call it Theta Warriors Inner Circle. We called it by a name that summarized what this product product actually did and what it would help the person with when they invested into this. And based on this market research, we were also able to find out the financial qualification of his market. And we priced one offer, the lowest starting offer, the high ticket offer, at 4K. The next one was 7.5K, and the top tier one was 12K. And we actually sold that offer multiple times. And with the low ticket, to revamp the low ticket based on what the people were giving feedback on, right? The low ticket members that we interviewed, as well as members we interviewed who canceled their low ticket. We had a few of those as well. We kept the low ticket the same. We changed the name of the low ticket to create some novelty. And we also gave a 20% discount on the first month of the low ticket to get more members in, which is something we then used during the launch itself. And from the market research, with the high ticket specifically, we ended up with a messaging of, we're not giving you the fish in the high ticket like most of these low ticket servers or even mentorships, right? Where they feed you with live trading alerts and they just want to keep you stuck in the cycle of relying on them. Again, that's something we got from the market research, as well as the feedback calls that we had with people. And we made the messaging, again, we're not giving you the fish, but we're actually teaching you how to catch the fish, right? How to become a self-reliant trader that can adapt and profit regardless of the market condition. And dialing in this offer and dialing in the messaging, the pricing became crucial for the results we actually achieved with this launch. Now, this first phase, right, market research is pointless if you don't actually market the offer, right? Which is why the next step became the actual conversion process, which is the marketing, the funnel, the automations we built out to push the offer and launch the product itself. Now, with this creator, my personal goal was to maximize every single audience platform that he had, right? I wasn't looking at just the higher leverage platforms he was on, like Twitter. I was looking at everything because I wanted to make this the biggest launch he'd ever have and get him the best results possible and also make as much money as I could. So we started looking at where are we going to distribute this content, right? And we had a Discord, and by content, I mean the pre-launch and the launch content, which I'm going to get into. We had this Discord with 3,000 people. We had a WAP, and by WAP, I mean his low ticket, which was hosted on WAP, right? They would pay through WAP. There was 500 people actively in the community. We had a Twitter with 130,000 people, and we had a list. This list now was not touched. He hasn't emailed it in 8 months, and when they would email them, it would be like a once in every 2 months kind of thing with some sort of promotion, right? So it was an untouched list, and it was an inactive list. But those are all the things we had to work with. So after we dialed in where we're actually going to spread the launching message and launch this program, we got into the actual launch strategy. And the launch strategy I followed is a typical launch strategy I'll follow for someone that doesn't have a high ticket offer or even is relaunching a new high ticket offer or low ticket offer like we relaunched with this case. For the content structure itself, I like to follow what Hermosi coined as whisper, tease, shout, right? And the way it starts is in the pre-launch, you're building anticipation and you're creating open loops for what's coming, right? What's coming with the program. The next thing is to agitate their desires, right? The desires we found through our market research. And we future praise the desires they have to that future identity and the outcomes they can get when they get in on this program, right? Taking them from this guy who's, playing video games in his basement to being the guy who drives a Lamborghini as an example. The next important step of pre-launch and launch content was positioning the creator, even though he was anonymous, as an authority, right? And bonding with the audience emotionally. And this is where the creator's story, having his backstory, really helped us because he actually had a story that was very similar to his audience. He was a similar age to them, and he went from being a 9-to-5 employee to being someone who is trading full-time, profitably, making multiple 5 to 6 figures per month in a matter of years. And that's what we plugged in. And with this entire pre-launch and launch strategy, we focused for 14 days. We had a 14-day pre-launch period and a 7-day launch period. And I'm going to explain how it actually worked in a second here, but it's super important that, we've done the pre-launch. You should always do a pre-launch because if you don't do a pre-launch and you just drop a program on your story and you say, hey, the doors are open, join my high ticket mentorship, I have 10 spots open, you're going to be launching to crickets. You're going to be launching to no one, right? There's not going to be any tension built up with your audience for them to actually jump on the offer because it's the first time they're seeing it, which is why that propaganda before you actually open doors, open enrollment to your offer is so important. And so here's how we distributed the content. In the free Discord, we would make belief breaking posts and we would follow this content structure here and post in a free Discord. In the free Discord, we would push people to the revamped low ticket, right? Because the free Discord were people who didn't join the low ticket. So we would spread that, how that's coming, as well as the upcoming high ticket program. Then with the low ticket itself, with the low ticket members in the Discord, we posted about the upcoming high ticket that would bridge all these gaps that the low ticket didn't bridge for them. On his X, we primarily marketed the upcoming high ticket program he had. On his email list, this was very important. Before we actually started marketing the pre-launch and what he had coming, we had to do 3 days of warm-up emails on his email. And these warm-up emails are just 9-word emails that are more like questions. But what they do is if you have an untouched list or a list you haven't emailed for a long time or never emailed, they get the email list engaged and they show the servers that you're a real person, right? Because these 3 emails here that we sent on day 1, day 2, day 3, before sending any of the marketing or teasing emails, they were reply baiting emails. They were asking questions like, hey, are you still trading options? What's your biggest challenge with turning profitable right now? And we would bait replies. When they would reply, we would reply back to them. And this shows the email servers that you're a real person. And this is also how you don't destroy your open rate, right? Because this happens all the time. Someone will launch launched to an email list they never touched. They just collected an email list. And then when they launched, first few days, perfect, right? 30, 40, 50% open rates. And then it goes down to 5% for no reason. This is why, because you start blasting promotional emails to your list without really showing the email servers that you are a real person. And they might assume you're a bot. And then this is what prevents that. This is how we prevented this with this list that hasn't been emailed in 8 months before we came into it. And we were able to average a 30 to 35% open rate on all of the actual pre-launch and launch emails that were marketing the product. So after the 3 days, we started by pushing out the actual pre-launch marketing emails. Something that was super important with all of the launch content was building trust in every third email and third post that we sent. And by trust, I mean creating a lot of social proof, right? He had social proof from the low ticket because he was anonymous, right? This wasn't a person that they would trust based off his story. They'd never seen his face. They didn't know his name. The only thing that would back up our claims would be his personal numbers in his trading account and his win rate, right? This is something we would constantly talk about, and his trade history, which thankfully, this was a huge upside. The creator documented every single trade he took for the past 4 years before we launched him, right? He's been posting his wins, losses, break evens on Twitter, and that's something we heavily leveraged and relied on. And of course, the social proof of people getting results in his low ticket. In total, during the pre-launch and launch, we posted 28 times in the free community, 18 times in the low ticket membership channel on Discord. So these were people who bought his low ticket, the recurring membership. There was 40 emails in total to the list, right? This doesn't include the 3 warm-up emails, and it was 31 posts on X. Now, the question you might have now is, where did you actually drive this traffic? So for the pre-launch itself, when we were teasing the program, we would drive them to the waitlist page. And the way this is structured is you have your headline with the 2 biggest desires these people had, which was generating consistent market profits, right? And being able to adapt to every market condition in less than 60 minutes per day. Huge objection we found on every single market research call, and with the competitors that he had that were selling to an ICP of similar age, was a time objection. These people were working jobs, which is a great thing, right? Because they were financially qualified, but they didn't have a lot of time to trade. Markets open at 8:30, 9 a.m. EST, and these people were at work at that time, unless they were in like Pacific time. So we needed to minimize the time commitment that it would take to actually use this adaptive trading approach. And then the thing in the subheadline was the objections, right? Without hit or miss time consuming strategies, risky trades, or draining cycles of losses. This is what would happen, right? They would go through a winning cycle and then they would have a draining cycle of losses that would drain their account and drain their win streak. Something important here as well is we had a form button color contrast. This is something that increases your opt-in rate. So as you can see, the page's colors were blue, white, and gray. We had a different color. We had a green color on all of the actual opt-in buttons. Then another thing that was important that boosted our opt-in rate further was giving them an illusion of control under the button itself, right? We told them what's going to be the next step after they confirm the reservation for the upcoming launch. On this waitlist page, right, that we use in a pre-launch, we had bullets under the opt-in form that communicated what they would get, right? So if someone was not confident enough to opt in based on a headline, a subheadline, they would scroll down, they would see, okay, this is what I'm going to get when I reserve my seat for the adaptive trading approach. And then we had proof, right? We had a lot of proof. These thumbnails, they increase the click-through rate on the proof, right? So someone actually watches it. We have headlines and thumbnails, headlines above the thumbnails. And then also under the headline, there's clear directions, right? Some of these people were older, 50 years old. There's not a play button here with the video software that we use to embed these videos. So we would tell them, okay, if you want to play this video, click the button. So we would tell them, if you want to play this video, just click on the video to play it. And again, if you can see this entire waitlist page, and this is something we've done throughout the funnel, which you'll see here shortly, was stacked with proof due to the creator being faceless. Then at the end of the waitlist page, at the very bottom, we had another opt-in form to remove friction. And if someone did scroll through all this proof, right, they weren't confident, and now they were confident enough, we didn't want to have them scroll all the way back up, right? So we would give them another opportunity to opt in. This page in total averaged us a 25% opt-in rate in the pre-launch. Now, after the waitlist, when we started putting out the launch posts, launch emails, we had a VSL page with an application form. On this VSL page, we had an urgency pre-headline, limited offer, right? We had a learn action, CTA, in the headline itself, learn the secret trading approach, right? So they would have to watch the video to learn this. The entire VSL was focused on selling the mechanism, the adaptive trading approach, and not selling the creator because the creator was anonymous. So in the VSL, we focused on selling the mechanism and the results that the creator got with this mechanism. And then on the VSL page itself, we also had a timer, and this would force viewers to view the actual VSL and play through it, right? And understand the messaging before they would be able to apply, not knowing what they're applying for. Of course, this VSL was fully animated because the creator was faceless. So the entire thing was literally animated from scratch. It's a 16-minute animated VSL.
And in the next 9 minutes, I will show you how you can use this adaptive day trading approach that's helped over 500 day traders maintain.
Leading with proof at the start of the VSL there. Then when the timer would run out, they would have a button to fill out the application form for the VSL, which was the CTA in the VSL. They would apply for this, and the form was also optimized based on our market research, and we had to ask qualification questions in a way that wouldn't trigger this avatar to actually leave. We had a 65% completion rate on the form, and there was a total of 4 primary questions. The first one was their primary trading objective. This one was talking about the pain or the problem they had. What is their ideal schedule? Super important question, because again, these people, most of them were working and they had families, they had responsibilities because they were older. So this was important to understand. And then the way we framed the investment question that reduce or drop off was talking about the fact that trading takes capital, and essentially we asked them how much they have to trade with. Then from there was 2 options. They would either be qualified based on this form, or they would be disqualified. We'll talk about what would happen if they were disqualified and the low ticket downsell process in a second. But if they would be qualified, they would go to a call page. Here on the call page, you have a scarcity pre-headline. You have a loading bar to communicate that they're making progress through the form, through the actual application for the mentorship. And then you have a benefit-oriented headline for them to book a call. Then, because this was an older avatar, we found through recording screen sessions of people landing on this page that they were just confused on how they can book a call. This is something we use Microsoft Clarity for. So we had this GIF here that would literally show how you book a call, which helped these older aged, 35, 50-year-old people understand how they can actually book their time. Now, once they booked the call, they would go to the confirmation page. This was a step-by-step, easy to follow confirmation page. You have step 1, step 2, step 3. There was a scarcity pre-headline to keep them on the page saying their application was still being completed. The VSL was completely animated as well. It set the frame for the call and the confirmation page, what they needed to do before the call. There was a podcast VSL with a closer. The closer here, this is the closer that would take the calls once people would book a call. He was asking objection handling questions. And this whole thing, this podcast was positioned as a podcast. In reality, it's just a hidden sales asset. It's like a podcast VSL. Because for example, the closer would ask the creator, what do you think about people who say they don't have enough time to trade because they have families or 9-to-5 jobs? And the creator would answer that in a way that would handle that objection before they would show up to the call, because that was a huge objection for these older people. And then they would consume this because they would genuinely think this is an exclusive podcast. Then another thing we had was a pre-call exclusive community that they would be able to join on the confirmation page, where we had just more propaganda before the call and more follow-ups, and then undeniable proof of the unique product mechanism working. Now, here's the thing. We had to get them to actually consume this, right? So here's how we would frame it. The transformations and a podcast were pre-framed in this post-call 5-minute confirmation VSL. We framed the podcast as watch the podcast and tell us your takeaways / trading traps, objections you've fallen for, so we can better serve you on the call. And then to get them to watch transformation, there was 3 hours worth of transformations here. We would ask them to tell us whose transformation they relate to, so we can see what worked for them and then implement that into their personal strategy on the call. And again, with these resources, with the creator being faces, the consumption of these resources carried a lot of the weight in building trust with people and them actually showing up to the call, because they would invest anywhere from 1.5 on average to 2 hours watching these pre-call trainings to tell us who they relate to and what traps they've fallen into based on this private, exclusive podcast that we framed it as. And at the bottom of the page, we had more results. Now, here's what would happen if someone was disqualified, because we had a low ticket and we wanted to sell that low ticket, which is exactly what we did. If they were disqualified based on the form, or if they came from the free Discord post where we did market the upcoming revamped low ticket, they would go to this downsell or low ticket page. The pre-headline would reframe their application and them landing on this low ticket instead of a call as this is something that they're qualified for based on their application. The headline would position the low ticket as a way for them to get access to the unique product mechanism, the adaptive trading approach. Then we would have more proof of the creator using the mechanism, the adaptive trading approach. We would have a GIF of his win rate across multiple years. Then lower on this low ticket, we had the features and benefits with visual mockups of those features and benefits. We value stacked them, and then we gave them bonuses. These bonuses, specifically with the low ticket, were focused on pre-handling objections, right? Like one of the bonuses was a trade life balance guide, because again, these were busy people. These were older people with families, and they would find it difficult to balance trading with their lives and actually make trading work. So that's a bonus we included. And then they would get their discount. Now, this would typically be $79. Sometimes it varied. This is just a screenshot of the page. And on this low ticket, we wanted to maximize our average order value. So this was actually a 2-step order form. And this way, we would get their opt-in. We would collect the abandoned carts, right? People who would land on this page, opt in, wouldn't buy. And then we would be able to win those people back over. And I'll show you how we did that in a second as well. Now, on the second step of the order form, when they would opt in, there was 2 order bumps, right? This is how we maximize our AOV with low ticket offers. Both order bumps averaged 25 to 30% take rates and boosted our average order value. The first bonus was trading charts. The second bonus was the stop loss calculator that the creator used. And the same thing with the trading charts. These were just charts that the creator was watching. So essentially, if someone would join the low ticket, one of the deliverables was they would have calls with the creator where they would see him analyze these charts, and they would also have course materials. There was only 1 call per week, and I'll tell you how we use that call to send more people into the high ticket as well. But there was course material of him using these charts. So it's like, not only can you watch him use these charts, you can actually put these into your trading account and use them for yourself. We were just essentially solving the next problem someone would have if they joined the low ticket and got access to all of this. What would be the next thing we solved. And that's what the order bumps did. Then below we had our sales letter. Now, if someone bought the low ticket, the next page they would move on to wouldn't be some sort of thank you page. It would be a mid-ticket upsell page. It was a OTO, one-time offer. This is what they would land on. They would have their progress bar. Congratulations, your order is on the way. And then they would have a VSL here that would upsell them onto the mid-ticket. This VSL was fully animated as well, and it would create a gap between the low ticket and the mid-ticket. Of course, there's this progress bar which would show them that their order is on the way and they're making progress through the funnel. And then this button here was a one-click upsell because the low ticket collected their credit card information. And if they watch this VSL and they want to join the mastermind and get additional deliverables, which were essentially group coaching deliverables, they'd be able to click this button and upsell at one click, and we'd get an extra $497. This page typically converted at 8 to 10%. So out of everyone who would buy the low ticket, 8 to 10% of those people would convert and buy the mid ticket. We of course had an offer stack, more proof here. And then if someone didn't want to buy the mid ticket, which is something we had to give them as an option, they would be able to click the no thanks button and they would just be able to claim their low ticket. This is also something that the VSL talked about. It said if you don't want to have access to the mastermind, just scroll down, click the no thanks button, and you'll be on your way. And below that no thanks button, the last thing we had was an FAQ page, which was essentially just handling objections. Is the mastermind too advanced for me, right? So people would buy the low ticket and it's like, is this enough, right? Or should I have another step? I'm a beginner. And that's what we answered there. And then after they would click no thanks or one click upsell onto the mid ticket, there was an onboarding call page, right? So we wanted to onboard every single person who bought the low ticket or the low ticket and mid ticket. And the way we framed this onboarding call was a way for them to maximize this purchase. And in reality, the way this onboarding call worked is they would get on with a setter who would essentially triage them. And at the start of the call, the setter would of course onboard them, show them, their way around Discord. And once they would, the setter would say something along the lines of, while the mid ticket and the low ticket, or while the low ticket is definitely going to help you, would you be open if I ask you some additional questions to see if there's anything else I can send from the creator, any other personalized trainings I could send over? And they would go into a discovery phase. And after that discovery phase, if the person was qualified, the setter would be able to bridge that into having a strategy session with a success coach, which is a term for a closer. And then the closer would be able to upsell that person and ascend them onto the high ticket. And typically if someone bought the mid ticket and they would be ascended to the high ticket, we would give them that discount off the high ticket. So if they were qualified for the 7.5K offer, we would give them to them for 7K because they already paid $500 for the mid ticket. Now this strategy here, to break down the numbers, generated over 120 calls during the first launch, and it generated around 140 low ticket customers. We did this, as I said, a 14-day pre-launch. We're not including the 3 days of emails there. And then we ran a 7-day open enrollment. Now with that open enrollment, it was 7 days, but in reality it was 5 days, right? So we opened it on Monday and then we did a fake close on Friday. And then Saturday it was closed, right? The program's gone. Here's the people who are already getting results inside. Created a ton of FOMO for the people who missed out. And then on Sunday, on the last day of that open enrollment period, we actually reopened the doors, right? For the people who didn't make it in. And that actually boosted our conversions by about 30%. We got 30% more low ticket customers in that 1 day reopen. And I mean 30% of the total amount of customers we got and total amount of calls we got, right? And we got 30% more calls booked on the calendar when we did that 24-hour reopen because people saw that we're not messing around and the program was actually going to close. Now, within the low ticket itself, right? As I said, the goal here was to maximize every single lead. And this includes low ticket leads as well, or low ticket customers. Inside of the low ticket Discord, we had an ascension process. The first thing is the gains channel. In the gains channel, this was where people posted wins from the high ticket and the low ticket. This built trust with the low ticket members. It built trust and FOMO with the free members because they would also see this gains channel. And it also gave people who had calls scheduled with us proof that this mechanism is working. This is, by the way, why if someone would book a call, they would go to the confirmation page and they would have this option to join the community, right? If they're not in it already. Because if they were in the community before their call, they would access this gain channel, and whatever that time frame, 24, 48, 72 hours before their call, they would be seeing all these wins coming through from people using the adaptive trading approach, which has built more trust with the offer. Now, the next thing we had was an onboarding channel. So obviously, not everyone who would buy the low ticket and low ticket or mid ticket would book their call on this onboarding call page. So when they would join, we would force them to book their onboarding call. And again, the whole framing there was we're doing this to actually help you make the most out of this. So it's not like another low ticket program that you buy and then you don't get results from. This specifically, this channel would limit their access for the first 8 hours of the membership, framing the onboarding call as a requirement. And on this call, same process, right? The setters would onboard them for the first 5 minutes of the call and then go into the discovery process. We also offer them to get additional bonuses from booking that onboarding call and showing up to it, in order to promote more people getting onto the onboarding call, right? This just gave a chance to the reps to upsell the person onto the high ticket. And again, if the person wasn't upsell worthy, this also increased our retention in the low ticket and mid ticket offer because they would literally have like concierge onboarding them into the program and they just paid $100 or $80, right? $79 for it. Now, the next thing we had is our support tickets, right? For full transparency, this was done too late in the process. bonuses. So this had minimal impact on the launch, but it did help. Every time a low ticket and low ticket or mid ticket member would join, they would get their personalized support ticket. Inside of that support ticket, this was created automatically. Inside of this onboarding channel, there was the creator, there was the low ticket member, and there was a setter. That setter was framed as a success coach. The reason we did this is because on Discord, if you're messaging people and your setters are messaging people, and especially if you're messaging people with like your personal, even if you use the creator's account, first of all, Discord has like a 11 per day messaging limit that it puts you on pretty quickly if you start spamming messages to people in your community. The second thing is there's just so many scammers on Discord that people don't trust setters. They think, this is just a scammer trying to message me from the program pretending to be the creator. So creating the support ticket, the creator didn't have to communicate here at all. They wouldn't communicate because the setter was just labeled as the success coach. And in turn, this gave the setter an opportunity to push for calls whenever a customer had an issue. And this allowed the setter to push for calls whenever the customer had an issue that we could help with in our high ticket offer. Because if a customer wanted one-on-one support and they're in the low ticket or mid ticket, they would message the support channel and then the success coach or the setter would answer them. Then we had an upgrade channel. In this upgrade channel, we had a shorter VSL embedded within a Discord, and this would be targeting the low ticket members, and they would see it and they would ascend into the high ticket. Now, the next thing we had in the low ticket was an accountability channel. This was also available for the mid tickets. This accountability channel contained an accountability trading form. This was a deliverable of a low ticket, so people actually used it, right? This is something they paid for the product. And the accountability form would be reviewed by the fulfillment team one time per week, and they would help the traders who actually filled it out. A lot of traders still didn't fill it out. This would increase the retention, right? Because the traders saw that even though they're paying $90 a month, $100 a month, they're still getting help. But the main point of the form was to give setters the opportunity. Setters had an opportunity to see this form as well, and it would give setters more leads because they would see that, X Discord user filled out this form. They have this problem. We solved this problem in the high ticket, and they would be able to reach out to them in that support ticket. Now, last but not least, of course, the weekly calls. This was a deliverable in the low ticket. The creator would do weekly calls with the low ticket members as well as the mid ticket members. And at the end of every call, he would be able to pitch the high ticket membership, right? If you're enjoying Elite, which was the low ticket, and you're looking to fast track your success, and then he would pitch the high ticket call, booking a high ticket call to fast track their success. Now, after we did this was pretty much the original launch, but that wasn't it for the first launch. 3 weeks after the launch, we did a webinar. I did a webinar relaunch to squeeze in more volume and maximize this audience. This became another chance for people who didn't access the adaptive trading approach to unlock the approach. And the way we positioned this webinar was for those who didn't make it during open enrollment, 2-3 weeks ago, they could join this webinar and learn the adaptive trading approach. We positioned this as a way of making it up to these people, right, for free, because the webinar was free to join. For this webinar, we followed the same content structure as we followed for the entire launch. We did a 10-day pre-launch email and post campaign on Twitter, Discord, low ticket for the webinar. And on the webinar, the CTA was to book a call or buy the low ticket, depending on where the person was at and their financial status. We got 300 signups on the webinar. 90 people showed up to the webinar, and then we booked another 25 calls from this webinar and got another 33 low ticket members. Now, besides the webinar in this process, we repeated the entire launch process 2 times. So we did 2 more cohort launches following the same structure apart from the webinar. We generated an extra $300,000 to $350,000 in revenue, and those relaunches, we did them 4 to 5 months apart. The main thing in the relaunches was novelty, right? So I would do things like turning the $79 low ticket into a $17 7-day trial. And then on the third launch, because we were launching to pretty much the same audience, the creator didn't grow much. In fact, if you look up his Twitter right now, he's still at like 139K followers, right? And this is in a span of 6 to 12 months. So on the third launch, I just made the sales process extremely direct, and it was pretty much an anti-VSL. And that's because during these relaunches, I understood, what happens with audience fatigue. And if you essentially tell the same joke many times, right, it stops being funny. So with that second launch where we relaunched, the way we did that trial was $17 for 7 days. And the whole trial was also structured, right? So on day 1, they would get a confirmation email and text that told them they will be auto-billed after their trial ends if they don't cancel. And day 2, they would get emails as well as text messages talking about results, right? Selling them on the dream, which is exactly what happened in day 3. And day 4, again, these are $17 7-day low ticket trial members. They would be sent results from Platinum, and also in their personalized support ticket, they would receive results from Platinum. And by results, I mean like they would receive an email, an SMS, a post in a Discord. Day 5, they would receive an accountability SMS and email asking them to give us feedback. Same thing in the support ticket. Day 6, we would create FOMO by sending them a schedule of what they're going to miss out on if they cancel this low ticket and don't get rebilled $99 per month. And then in day 7, we talked about the bonuses they're going to receive when they get rebilled. And day 8, we sent an email to everyone on that list who joined the trial. This was a little scheme, and we essentially made it seem like we just sent it to the wrong person and they can claim the discount for themselves. And then if they would say post-trial in the low ticket, we would keep dialing them about Platinum to get them to ascend. Now, in terms of the third launch with the anti-VSL, we pushed straight to high ticket, and this VSL wasn't animated. It was literally a Google slide.
Are you stuck in
Here's exactly how it looked.
1 week you're up, the next week everything's gone. Your entries feel like guesses.
Just a shorter form VSL, and then directly to book a call. Below that, we had results. This was the third cohort launch we did that was responsible for additional revenue. Now, in terms of the marketing, that is pretty much it. That's what we did to launch this offer, and that's how we positioned it in the marketplace, and that's how we sent people from low ticket to high ticket, how we increased the amount of low ticket members, increased their attention, and of course, collected hundreds of thousands from the high ticket. Now, just to be a little bit more detailed and specific here, with these launches, we always had these sequences, right? So we used follow-up automations through GHL that would send texts and emails. We would have an automation for waitlist, no application, meaning if they joined this waitlist here and they didn't apply when the launch came out, we would win them back over. If they filled out this application form with questions, I can't find it here, this form right here, but they didn't end up booking their call and they were qualified, we would win them back over. Of course, call confirmations to increase show-up rates as well as closing rates after they would consume content and get their objections removed and build trust. There was a no-show automation. There was a call not close automation. So if someone was lost on a call by a closer, we had a follow-up sequence for that would follow up with a person and try to win them back over into the program. Then we had low ticket seen, no purchase. So this was for people who were disqualified for the high ticket and would land on the low ticket page. We would win them back over. Mid ticket seen, not purchased. Low/mid ticket purchased without an onboarding call being booked. So they didn't book their ascension call. And then to actually integrate all of this together, we had a software stack. For emails, we used Beehive. This is what I found to have the highest open rate and deliverability rate so far out of all the softwares I've tested. Typeform for the actual applications, Calendly for calls. Every VSL, every video that we put up on a funnel, we used Vturb to increase play rates because they have an autoplay feature. For anything we did content-wise, we used Poe. And right now, currently, the best model of Poe is Claude Opus 4.1. At the start, it was just 3.5. We had Opus 3.5. For lead management, and this goes more into the sales side of things, we're about to go into the third phase, which was the sales process. We use GHL for all the API integrations with leads. We use Make for dialing. We use Dialer.io. I've did multiple tests, and Dialer.io has always had a higher pickup rate than GHL or any other software. It's very easy to use, gamifies the dialing process for dialers, and typically it gets really good feedback from them as well. They enjoy using it. For sales calls, we use Zoom, and for recording the sales calls, we used Fathom. Now, in terms of the actual sales process itself, I do need to make a note. During the first launch, which was responsible for about $300,000 in revenue, a little bit more than that actually, there was no dialers or setters involved. All I had was a closer. The way I got a closer was from referrals, and here's a few examples of sales trainers that you can get referrals from. And the reason that first launch performed so well is just because of all the marketing assets we had before they would even jump on a call. And then obviously we had that webinar that would literally sell people on the mechanism before they had a call. The people who watched that webinar and then booked a call were pretty much laydowns. And by the way, during that first launch and the consecutive launches after that, there was just one closer. I've never had more than one closer on this offer. And part of the reason for that is because most people, the majority of people, about 80%, would go for the mid offer, which is $7.5K. So we would just collect so much up front. And we did have multiple people PIF. And I'm talking about close to 6 to 8 people buy the 12K offer. I don't have the exact stats, but it's in that range. Now, after the first launch, I actually dialed in the process to keep doing these cohort launches, with the same audience. And we actually got a DM setter. This is someone who worked on GHL SMS. There was also 2 dialers. And of course, there was a closer taking the sales calls. The dialer and the setter were reaching out to all the leads and converting them for sales calls on the closer. The DM setter was also in those support channels that I talked about, ascending people from low ticket memberships to onboarding calls or sales calls. There was a dialing script that was built on the market research and just the feedback we got from the dialing calls, as well as a sales script. Under this dialing script, one thing we did is if someone was disqualified for, at least a 4K offer, the dialer was able to downsell the mid-ticket offer 497. And then with the closing process, something that worked really well was actually showing, not just talking about the deliverables, showing them in a Discord. The closer would always share a screen, go through the Discord, show them exactly what they're going to receive. He would walk through all of the high ticket channels where high ticket members would get fulfillment. He would also go into the gains channel, right? And talk about, these are the exact results these people are getting. And for the closer, when he was doing these demonstrative pitches, it was extremely important for him to focus specifically on what the lead struggled with based on what they said at the start of the call, right? So if it was consistency, he focused on the accountability, and the accountability these high ticket members get by filling out these forms and getting their traders reviewed by the creator. If it was actually learning trading, he would focus on the daily calls they would get with the creator, the daily group calls to be specific, where they can see him trade live and explain his decision making, right? So they can see what he does, what works well, what works not so well, and then imitate that that in their own trading process, right? And learn to catch the fish for themselves. In terms of the sales process, when someone would book a call, they would get an instant dial by a dialer. These dialers had confirmation scripts. So as soon as they would book, they would get dialed to confirm their call, as well as set a frame for them to watch those pre-call resources that would build trust with the offer owner. The dialer or setter would put them into a group chat with the closer, where the closer would send a selfie video, right? Putting a face kind of to the name, since the creator didn't have a face that was public. Then the dialer would also call them the night before to confirm if they're still making a call. And then from the live call, if the person would make it to the sales call and show up, we typically average around 70 to 80% show up rate with this process. A big portion of that goes to our pre-call sequences, focusing on the actual trainings themselves and not just annoying people about showing up to the call. But once they would show up, they would either be downsold onto the mid-ticket, they were DQs, or they would be sold on one of the high-ticket packages. And from there, they would get put into the Discord and a group chat with the creator, who would then onboard them on a call. And obviously he was completely faceless on this call, right? He would just have his logo and then get them into the program. Now, in terms of the sales team management, this is the way it worked, right? We got traffic from these sources, the Twitter, the free Discord, the low ticket, the email list. Some people would auto book from the funnel. Some people would be triaged by getting dialed. The dialers there was 2 dialers. They had shifts. This was enough, by the way, for the lead flow we were getting. The schedule for these dialers was mixed throughout the week to make sure it's fair, right? So if there's more leads in the morning and one dialer is working all the morning shifts, it wouldn't be fair, right? So they would be able to mix their schedules. And then the closer was actually closing them. The commission structure for the closer was for the 4K package, 10%. And the reason it has 3,500 here was we would work some discounts out with people, or if they already bought the mid ticket, they would get that $500 off. For the 6 to 7.5K package, 10%. And then for the 10 to 12K package, they would get 8% commissions. Every 7 sales through the month, if the closer hit 7 sales halfway into the month, on all the sales after that, they would get a 5% commission increase on every sale they made. And then the setters themselves, we had conditional payouts. So at 3 sales, they would get 500, 6 sales per month, right? This per month, they would get 1K base, and in bonus every 5 sales was $200. And this was their commission structure for the actual high ticket packages. And that is exactly how we launched and scaled this faceless trading offer to over $500,000.